Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Congressional District 4 Candidate Forum. My name is Lori Russell, and I'm a volunteer member of Michigan for the People, the group sponsoring this event. We're a grassroots, nonpartisan group working to make sure we send someone to Congress who will truly stand up for the needs of our district. We're excited and grateful to have you all with us tonight. Democracy only works if we all take part, so thank you for being engaged. We're very pleased to have two of the candidates with us tonight, Diop Harris and Tanis. Diop's running a little late. We greatly appreciate their taking the time to be here to engage with us, to hear our concerns, answer our questions, and help us all make the best decisions we can in the upcoming election. We're also grateful to Ryan Berza and his staff at Griswold for their help in making this happen. Our format this evening is a forum, not a debate. Each candidate has been given a list of questions and will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves, 3 minutes to respond to each question, and a final 3 minutes for a closing statement. Kathy will be our timekeeper, and Mark Elliott and myself will be asking the questions. If you want to revisit tonight's event, we are streaming it and we'll post it to our Facebook page. We will also have the opportunity to speak with candidates immediately following this part of the event.
Good evening. I'm going to get used to a little bit of an echo there. Hi, I'm Tanis, and I want to just take a couple minutes to introduce myself. I've always approached these sorts of things in the spirit of public service and not as a career politician. So I've been in and out of the political world throughout my adult life, beginning as a very young adult when I was elected to the Holland City Council at the age of 19. After serving a term there, I ran for mayor and was elected as what my wife likes to term the boy mayor at the ripe old age of 23, and served another term there. So it's 6 years to start. And then I retired and moved on and spent most of my career in the religious nonprofit world, working 16 years for the Reformed Church of America and 10 for the World Communion of Reformed Churches. Now, before I got to that, though, after grad school, I hopped back into politics for a couple of years, working for the International Republican Institute as a field agent, so to speak, in Bulgaria in the mid-90s, just after the fall of the wall, where I was able to work with the center-right parties in Bulgaria, who had been either revived or born out of the anti-communist movement, and help get them consolidated, taught them how to campaign, taught them how to build party structures, and how to work together. And we had some real success there, including putting a brand coalition together for a presidential primary, and the candidate that emerged from that went on and beat the socialists, otherwise known as the communists. They only changed their names 3 years before, and helped change the course of Bulgarian history. And they're now part of the EU and part of NATO, and looking west rather than just a satellite of Russia, which is what they were back in the Cold War. I'm running because I'm trying to return some principles to West Michigan and the 4th Congressional District. I strongly believe that we need to be civil with each other. Civil does not, and civility does not mean agreement, but it does mean respect. We don't need to be calling each other names. We don't need to be castigating each other. We can have a proper debate and clash of ideas without getting personal about it. I also think that we need to put country over party when it comes down to it. And I don't see Bill Heisinger doing that. I see him falling in line with all the other Republicans in Congress, and basically voting as he's told to do. And I also think we need to return proper representation to 4th District. And so I'm holding town hall meetings throughout the district, and also coming to any forums I'm invited to. So that's a quick introduction, and I nailed it.
Good job. Well, thank you to Michigan for the People for organizing this. Thank you for the residents of Allegan for showing up, and thank you for the work that you guys do in and out of politics. My name is Diop Harris. I was born and raised in Battle Creek, just a short drive down the street. I'm a proud member of the Nottawa Civic here in Potawatomi, and I'm running to represent you in DC to be your next congressperson and unseat Bill Heisenberg. Now, the status quo, the political establishment isn't working for anyone. It doesn't matter what political from liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, things just aren't working for us. And what's blocking our progress right now is corporate influence in politics. It's hurting our ability to get equal and decent access to healthcare because we have bought off politicians who listen to the insurance companies and not the folks who are uninsured. We have people that are approving rate hikes on us, approving tax breaks for data centers, fighting for consumers' energy, and leaving consumers out to dry. Now I'm running for Congress, not accepting any corporate PAC money to ensure that we can bring the good change to our communities that we actually need. Now, I got into this race because I come from Battle Creek. It was the center of the universe for a kid that came from the 90s. We had folks from all across the state, all across the nation even, coming into Battle Creek and experience our little amusement park we built to dedicate to cereal. And I saw my hometown evaporate as a result of the Great Recession. We saw businesses, schools shutter, families downsize, folks having to sell cars, and our town dried up. But in that moment of darkness, I still felt an immense amount of hope because my freshman year was 2008, and I got to see somebody that looked like me become president of the United States. And when I saw Barack Obama become president, I was filled with an immense amount of hope. But I knew that feeling wasn't just for me. So I got to work right away. I began my career as a community organizer, working for the Battle Creek Community Foundation. I pursued a public policy degree at Michigan State so I could learn how to leverage federal resources for communities that actually needed them. And then I worked on Capitol Hill to understand how the system actually works. And I learned there's a key difference in how things are done and how to get things done for people. And that's what I want to do for you all. I worked on Capitol Hill for Senator Sherrod Brown, and I want to bring that level of public service to Congressional District 4, because I know we're not getting it. We have Bill Heisenberg, who started off this term by closing his doors, turning off his phone, stop taking meetings with us all. You guys all deserve a congressperson who's going to be a federal reliable partner, someone that's going to help navigate some complicated government agencies, be there to hear something out, and even write a new piece of legislation because we definitely need that across the board. So this is just the start of that work. Thank you all for being here and can't wait to engage with you all.
Okay, question number 1. Since World War II, U.S. has spent trillions of dollars on defense. We spend more than the next 9 countries combined, yet the Pentagon has failed 8 consecutive audits. Do you think the American people deserve to know how that money is being spent? And how has making such investments in defense, rather than the American people, helped or hindered making us more safe and secure?
I want to start by first acknowledging the service of the hundreds of thousands of Americans who have served in our military, especially in the years following World War II and during the Cold War. This was a real battle, and although there were flare-ups and wars throughout the peace of the world after World War II, his 70 years has been unprecedented. That's cost money. But now we're in a different situation. And I want to harken back to what one of my favorite presidents warned us about. Dwight Eisenhower, general, president himself, warned us about this military-industrial complex. And I'm afraid what's driving a lot of military spending these days isn't what the military needs or wants, but it's the politics and the politicians who are saying, I want money spent in my district. I don't care what for. I don't care if they need it or not. And as we're seeing these days now in Ukraine and Iran, military engagements and battles are radically shifting. The multi-million-dollar missiles are being thwarted by $1,000 drones, and we have to recalibrate our military to better adapt to current conditions to make sure that we have a strong defense and can continue to guard and protect our country and stand alongside our allies as necessary. I think we also do need to have a real discussion on what our priorities are as a country. When I saw the Pentagon or the chiefs of the Pentagon asking for $1.5 trillion for the next year, I was like, hang on a second. To spend that much amount of money is just a recipe for corruption and mismanagement. And so, yeah, I think we need to hold all of the government accountable on spending, and we need to let the professionals in the Pentagon drive the requests and needs as they look to make sure our forces are ready to fight where they need to fight, ready to defend, and ready to do their jobs in a proper manner.
Well, absolutely, the American people deserve more transparency to how and where our defense dollars are going. And in fact, I want to illuminate you guys all on a Republican proposal, and I guess I shouldn't be so blatant partisanship. I'll say crazy, ridiculous people up in Washington and proposals that they're putting forward is to integrate the Israeli military into the defense budget. There's a proposal, Section 224, which would put that money behind a black box, just giving Netanyahu blank checks. And so when you elect me as your next member of Congress, I'm going to fight that tooth and nail to ensure that that money is not being spent overseas for U.S. to be complicit in the genocide. No, I'm going to ensure that that money is being spent investing in our babies and not bombs. We know that with this fake ceasefire with Iran, conflicts, hostilities have just risen again. We're now in a conflict with Iran again. And we know that one Tomahawk missile could cost anywhere between $2 to $4 million. Now, my elementary school, Verona Elementary in Battle Creek, just shuttered this year. We could keep that school open for another 5 years if we decide to drop one less bomb. Think of all the seniors that could still have access or could actually have access to Medicare, the veterans that actually could access their VA hospital, the things that we could pay for in our communities if we just decided to engage in less warfare. So when I'm your next member of Congress on Capitol Hill, I'm going to fight to ensure that we're investing more in diplomacy, because global security doesn't come with more war fighting. Global security means full fridges. It means safe communities, no different than what we need right here. So let's ensure that we're bonding together diplomatically, that we're sharing resources, that we're fighting diseases worldwide, because we know that they'll affect our own shores. So I'm going to be somebody that decides to work with people rather than a fight influence.
If you are elected, you'll most likely be in a divided house, striking compromises with opposing ideas. Where will you stand firm and where will you give ground? What kind of trade-offs are you willing to make as a representative?
Well, today, for the first time, I kind of expected this would happen. I was called a rhino. The great thing about it was they sold it like the animals. So I took that as a compliment, because I think you really need tough skin in a situation like this. And as I'm hoping you're picking up, I am not what most people would term as the current kind of Republican right now. I'm certainly not a Republican on Bill Eisenhower. I'm a throwback, traditional Republican who actually holds the principle that country should come before party, and that compromise is part of the political process. So when it comes down to having to compromise my ideals and principles, which I do hold to as a Republican, and I assume Democrats hold to theirs, I would put the good of the country overall and the specific needs of the 4th District as one of the ways. If we're in the middle of a discussion, debate over certain policy, if in the end this is going to benefit the 4th District and the country, that's the way that I would probably go without giving up my ideals.
Well, I'm going to stand firm for the people, but I know that we need creative solution making in order to get that. So I used to work in DC for Americans for Financial Reform, and during that time, we were leading champions for a bill that would put rate caps on payday loans, terrible financial products that target the most vulnerable of our communities. And we needed a bipartisan sponsor. So we as a ragtag group of progressive-minded Democrats, we worked with Chairwoman Maxine Waters, and we found a Republican co-sponsor. His name was Glenn Grothman of Wisconsin. Somebody who we disagree with on a lot of different issues, but where we found kinship was that we wanted to fight usurious interest rates. We wanted to fight usurious loans, just the same way that Jesus Christ did when he was on this earth. He fought against exuberant interest rates that bankers at the time levied on working class families. So we found Democrats and Republicans willing to walk in the footsteps of Christ and put interest rate caps on payday loans. Now, we introduced that bill that had bipartisan consensus, but we had corporate Democrats that wouldn't vote for it. So again, we had to be creative. Us as the folks in DC wouldn't listen to us. So guess what? We took our talking points, we handed them to the San Diego bishops that he does listen to, and then all of a sudden they were a co-sponsor on our bill. I worked on Capitol Hill for Senator Sherrod Brown, and at the time we introduced a piece of legislation that would protect a vulnerable immigrant community in our state. We were looking all about for a Republican co-sponsor, and we found one. He would listen to us, but he wouldn't close the deal. And working with the staffers, we're talking to the member himself, we couldn't get him to lock in. So we found an intern who was Mauritanian, who would have been a beneficiary of this bill. The intern then gave our talking points to his boss, and what do you know, we had a Republican co-sponsor on our bill, and we were able to introduce a bill in a bicameral, bipartisan fashion. Now, that doesn't happen unless you have a member of Congress, unless you have staff that actually care enough to do something about it. And that's what I'm going to do. I've employed these strategies on Capitol Hill. I'm very comfortable being uncomfortable. And I know that we have to find strange bedfellows in order to get things done for the American public. I'm willing to eschew party politics to ensure that the people's voices are heard on Capitol Hill and in our policy. And so I've done it before, I'm going to do it again once you bring it back to the Hill.
Trump has announced a national AI legislative framework for data center development that emphasizes deregulation and federal preemption. Newly proposed private data centers are massive at scale, bringing unimaginable impacts on land cover, water resource consumption, and electrical utility demand. About 2/3 of new facilities are located in rural communities, which may be under-resourced. Yet the managing and planning for such impacts are historically responsibilities of local and state governments. What is your position on private data center development and the proper mix of federal, state, and local oversight? Is there a federal assistance role to help ensure Senate and local governments perform adequate oversight and include provisions such as green energy mandates, utility tariff guarantees, asset abandonment contingencies, or resource cleanup?
That's a lot of questions.
Yes, it is.
So let me first say, as a local elected official and also as a Republican, I am all in for local decisions to be made by local communities. Federal government should not be imposing their will on the needs of the local community. At the same time, though, coordination is very helpful. And as we look at AI and its revolutionary impact that I think we're going to see over the next few years, we do need a national strategy, and the federal government is best placed to do that, at least the federal government that functions. It's a concern. But a federal national strategy to roll out AI to ensure that is beneficial rather than detrimental to the country is important. As we look towards where AI centers, data centers, and things need to be placed, I think we need to defer more to local communities, but the federal government could help with the states to provide the necessary zoning rules and laws that can be enacted to help govern these things. I think it's kind of crazy that we've got industrial parks throughout Michigan that are hurting because of the changeover from manufacturing to service and data that aren't being repurposed for these data farms. I mean, in Grand Rapids is a great example. The old steel-based pyramid is now a data center. That's perfect, right? Well, we shouldn't be churning up farmland and other areas and for these sorts of centers where they could be better placed. I think the other thing that the federal government should be doing is focusing on energy needs. And I'm a very strong proponent of green energy, renewables. I lived in Germany for 10 years, where they have an amazing network of windmills and solar farms. And there were days when we were being paid to turn our lights on because that much energy is being produced. The one thing I would specifically point to here as Michiganders is we've got a lake that's very wide. And if you put the windmill farm in the middle of the lake, there are studies that show we can generate 300% of the energy we need in all of Michigan from one windmill farm in the middle of the lake. And I've flown over the English Channel and seen these windmill farms in the middle of there. And if they can do it there, we should be doing this here instead of promoting 19th century energy technologies. We've got to start looking towards the future.
So I want to tackle the first part of that question, which addresses our president, Donald Trump. But first off, I'm a courage candidate. I'm endorsed by citizens impeachment, a growing class of incoming lawmakers who are going to support articles of impeachment on Donald Trump on day one. He has committed impeachable offenses already. He needs to be gone. I'd like to extend that pedagogy to Supreme Court justices and folks who commit wrongdoing against our people. And Donald Trump himself is set to benefit off of these data center deals. He's working with the tech oligarchs to put money in his own wallets rather than to benefit the American people. And Donald Trump aside, we see that is what our politicians do. And we saw Sam Altman and Gretchen Whitmer here in Michigan. You know, we saw an ominous picture of our land being sold off. And to see that in the Michigan State Legislature with our own Energy Committee Chairman, Sean McCann, my primary opponent, the tax breaks for the data centers went through his committee and he supported them. So we have bought off politicians who are ripping us off or allowing us to be ripped off. Now, me as your next congressperson, I'm going to support a moratorium on the development on data centers. Senator Sanders, Representative Ocasio-Cortez already have legislation on this. I've supported dating. Now, here in our local communities, we've seen fights all over the place in Kalamazoo County and here in Allegan County, in York Township, where there's a data center development or a proposed site. And in Gun Plain Township, where there's a BESS facility proposed, where residents believe this could be transferred into a data center. We have to fight these things left and right. And we've seen local communities step up and pass moratoriums of their own, like Texas Township and Kalamazoo County. But what I believe that we need with consumers and ratepayers and residents of our great district, we need to see at the table before land is transferred, before any votes are made, and us, the people, be able to determine what these projects look like in our own community. So I'm grateful for the fact that Kalamazoo residents are able to fight back against the Harbor Farm site there. But given that we're going to be putting a moratorium on data centers, I also be supportive of a host of protections that can help us combat the incoming threats of AI that poses to our society, including consumer protections that will protect our data and our privacy from the oligarchy. That would protect our, it would protect our environment, our water, our air, our land for the next set of generations. And I'd also be supportive of labor protections that would ensure that humans have a place at the work site, ensure that we have a human behind the wheel of a semi-truck, ensure that we have two-man crews on locomotives, and ensure that we have somebody to greet you at a register when you're at our grocery store. So I'm going to be supportive of a whole bunch of different measures that allow us to catch up and meet the moment.
Next question is, federal judges have ruled hundreds of people have been unlawfully detained by following Michigan's no detention facility. Around the country, community members, including citizens who committed no crimes, have been taken off the streets and away from their families. Many are being placed in overcrowded warehouses without decent food and water, basic hygiene products, medical care, contact with their families, and legal representation and without oversight by Congress. How would you ensure proper conditions and legal representation for detainees involved in selected facility? What accountability is required for individuals working for ICE or detention centers who violate constitutional rights of detainees, and what actions, if any, will you support with the agency going forward?
We say two foundational things. First, we're a country built on laws, and the foundational law of the land is the Constitution. I don't care who you are, you're not above it, you've got to respect it. And if you're going to be enforcing the laws, you have to respect it even more. So ICE needs to be unmasked like all of the federal agents, like all of the law enforcement agencies. They also have to be properly trained so that they actually understand their role. They can understand what they should be doing in situations that can often turn dangerous and sometimes violent. But bottom line, they cannot be violating the constitutional rights of anyone in this country. We are a country of immigrants. We will continue to be driven by new immigrants coming in. The current immigration system is a disaster. It hasn't been touched by Congress in 3 decades. So if I'm elected, one of the first things I'll start pushing for is immigration reform so that we can get things settled, so we know who should be coming in and how many should be coming in and what the systems and processes are once you're in. We have systems and processes in place right now. And I'm afraid that ICE agents at this point are violating and stepping over the lines, which they should not be doing. We should be respecting what we have, even if it is flawed. We should be especially respecting those who we have let in for the asylum seekers for reasons that have had to leave their country, for political violence, for environmental disasters. But we've got to get our whole house in order so that the world can still look to the U.S. as a place that they want to come to, as a place that guarantees equality for all and equal opportunity for all.
First off, we're going to abolish ICE. We don't need to replace it. We don't need to reform it. We need to gut it, remove it. It's something we didn't have before. We don't need it. I'd also be supportive of moving immigration enforcement, the rest of what we have, into the Department of Justice. If someone is to have immigration proceedings, they deserve law and order and due process just as anyone else. And so allowing those proceedings to go through the Department of Justice would allow just that for folks to have their day. Now, for folks to be held accountable, I think that Congress needs to recognize that it is an independent, co-independent branch of government. It needs to seize its power back and use its investigative duties. And so I bring up, the chief of ICE. I bring up the Department of Homeland Security secretary. The officers who have been alleged to have committed murder. The folks who have been alleged to withheld medical supplies from folks who have died in facilities, not just at Baldwin, but in Calhoun County, in my hometown of Battle Creek. So we're going to bring them all in, and we're going to have them explain themselves to the American people on what they did. And that would allow us the power to then to punish those folks. We've had people die in facilities. And we've excused just one, like no one death should be excusable, that none of them should happen. And people should be put in front of juries and held to account because of this, and none of this is happening. So Congress needs to seize power back, investigate what has happened, and then determine what those levers to address family harm and intergenerational trauma. It starts by abolishing ICE, and then we've got to take our power back.
Wealth inequality has substantially increased in the United States since the 1980s. Wealth combined with income represents a family's total opportunity to secure stature and a meaningful standard of living, as well as their ability to provide for their children's future. Moreover, wealth provides both short-term and long-term financial security, contributes to political power, and can be leveraged to obtain more wealth. At a time where, in the same week, Earth has its first trillionaire, and police in the United States killed a 1-year-old over alleged stolen diapers. What are your plans to address wealth disparity, and how would you ensure that the ultimate wealth get paid with their sharing?
So like much of what we're seeing in Washington right now, our tax systems are disaster and dysfunctional. And we're seeing haphazard and hodgepodge things come into it. So, you know, in the big beautiful bill or wherever, suddenly you don't have to declare all your tips. Well, that's a nice little handout, but it doesn't fit into a cohesive whole. And it doesn't make sense too when the big beautiful bill also continues to allow the billionaires and trillionaire, it just went so far, to get off with paying even less. I mean, we're all in this together, billionaires, trillions, all of us, none of us are self-made individuals. We're all a part of this community, and we all benefit from being part of this community in this country. So I would push for a comprehensive review and reform of the tax system. We need to close loopholes and tax all incomes, not just when you're from your paychecks. So if you're getting dividends, when you're cashing those in, you've got to be able to pay those off and not, you know, hide your money away if you've got bank accounts around the world. I speak as someone who has a bank account in Germany, and I paid German taxes for 10 years. And let me tell you, there's a little something more than this. And when I came into a little money there, they took fully 50%, period. I have no right of refusal, even though I was an American citizen, I was a German resident. So we've got to understand that government is necessary. I would also like to review how much government on the federal level is necessary. We also have to remember that we've got to get our fiscal house in order. This deficit is going to destroy this country and ruin it for our kids and grandkids. But this is all a piece of a whole, and I'm not seeing any leadership in Washington taking on these critical issues. Social Security is going to be close to broke in 8 years. That's not taxes, that's our money that we've invested, and they promised to pay it back to us. And I've been joking for 20 years, but I don't think I'm going to see any, and it's not becoming a joke anymore. We've got to have some people step up, and instead of doing performative politics and such, actually take on leadership positions and tackle these issues before it's too late.
We're going to tax the billionaires and we're going to tax the trillionaire. That's how we're going to ensure that our communities aren't just surviving, but thrive. And similar to the diaper alleged stealing situation, what really breaks my heart was a story coming out of Detroit last year. There was a woman with her kids in her car, didn't have a place to go, so they decided that they would stay one night in the parking structure of the MGM casino. And they either suffocated due to carbon monoxide inhalation or froze to death, one of the two. Terrible situation. But what the city of Detroit decided to do after that fact, you're probably thinking, oh, they probably helped the family out with, you know, that they were grieving and all of that. No. They decided to charge the mother with manslaughter. That's how our society treats our people. I think everybody involved with that decision to think they were going to send that mom to jail, I think all those folks should be sent to jail. So we need to really do better for our people. Ensure that Betsy DeVos isn't able to buy the third and fourth yacht. Let's make sure that we're not having a growing unhoused population in Kalamazoo City streets. Let's ensure that we raise the cap on contributions to Social Security to make it so working class people aren't the only ones that are buying into our system. No, we're going to have the richer as well. I'm not taking any corporate PAC money, so we're not allowing the voice of the corporations to be louder than the people. No, I'm eschewing the insurance companies because I've heard from you about how the lack of insurance has hurt you. I'm going to be fighting for universal access to healthcare because I don't want to let healthcare executives profiteer off of our sickness. I'm not taking any corporate PAC money, and I'm going to hold the rich accountable. So I'm going to fight for consumers and not consumers' energy, while energy utility corporate executives bankroll off of us. And guess what? Your taxpayer dollars go to their private jet executive travel. So we're going to end that. And we're not taking any corporate PAC money from the defense contractors or from the APAC influencers. So you know that we're going to spend our money here at home and not allowing Boeing, Lockheed Martin, or those sorts of folks to profiteer off of death and destruction. So we're gonna hold them accountable in a whole different lot of ways, but you're gonna need to elect leaders that want to hold them accountable, not kowtow to corporate interests.
Last question, if you could design it from scratch, what would your ideal system of campaign financing look like? How does the financing of your own campaign demonstrate the principles in your ideal system?
First, my ideal would be a much shorter campaign season. I mean, this is ridiculous in the US. They're starting to jockey for the next presidential election already. And you look at, benefited me in Europe a couple of times, their 30 days is done. And in the meantime, they can jockey amongst the party faithful and such, but they don't have to subject all of us to all this nonsense. So shortening the campaign season would hopefully bring down some costs, although not necessarily. So I think we've got number two, any money spent in campaign for or against any candidate has to be fully documented for its sources. We need to know who's putting the money in. You can't have these darker paths, just spending things and covering up who they are and hiding who they are. The amount of money right now coming in is pretty ridiculous. And I thought that 24 years ago, in 2002, when I ran for state senate, I spent $20,000 on my campaign, and Wayne Pipers, who won, I came in second, spent $100,000, then plus all the PAC money. And I thought at that time that was ridiculous. And then I see that they spent $30 million just to primary out Representative Massey from Kentucky, and it's just crazy. So if we're going to try and reform things while still respecting the First Amendment, I think we've got to, open things up so you can see where the money's coming from. And then if you got direct financial business with the government, you just have to be disallowed. So that's a conflict of interest. And you can't buy people, can't buy that kind of influence. And that's what you feel. For me, I'm never going to accept PAC money. And I'll limit individual donations. For this primary campaign, I'm not accepting any money, which may be foolhardy, but it's an ideal and a principle I hold to because I strongly feel that money is a corrupting influence. I'm feeling the pressure just because of all the volunteers who have stepped up to help me. And I feel like I want to, do right for them. And I can't imagine what happens when you get $2 million in the bank and it's all come in to keep you in office. There's just a natural desire to do good for your supporters. So we've got to extract as much money as we can, and if we can't extract, then we've got to open up and make it obvious who's supporting who.
So I'm also endorsed by the Unrig Washington program as a part of in-citizen. So I support the prohibition of dark money in politics and want to overturn citizen. And so part of my dream green pastures of how voting and campaigns would work is that there wouldn't be any dark money or corporate PAC money allowed. And I'm demonstrating that because I'm not waiting for Citizens United to be overturned. I'm not taking corporate PAC money right now. This isn't something special that only I can do. It takes candidates who have courage to step forward to fight for a world they actually believe in. Also a part of my perfect world, I want to ensure that some of Michigan's best practices are spread across the entire nation. As we're seeing the Voting Rights Act completely eviscerated, one thing that could help fight the scourge of racial gerrymandering would be to ensure that every state around this country has an independent redistricting commission, just like we do, to ensure that there are fair lines and that voters choose their politicians, not the other way around. I'd also want to make Election Day a national holiday. Let's stop giving folks excuses to not vote. Let's make it cool, and let's make it a national tradition for folks to vote, not just on November 3rd, not just that first Tuesday in November, but that first Tuesday in May, that first Tuesday in August. Anytime there's a millage or ballot proposal on the ballot, folks should feel like they're uncool because they didn't vote. And I also think that we should put a cap on the amount of money that can be spent in an election. For me, I'm not raising millions of dollars, and yet we're still able to reach out to voters. We're still able to communicate our message. And in fact, in my race, Sorry, Phil, but I was the first candidate on the ballot, not taking any corporate PAC money. First candidate that had yard signs. First candidate to not only open one field office, but to open a second field office. No corporate PAC money. And so please tell me how we need to accept the billionaires and the oligarchs' influence to be able to win elections. We're doing it here right now. We've seen it around, we're continuing to see it around the country. In places like New Jersey, New York, Colorado, and even Midwestern communities like Wisconsin. The initiatives, the candidates that are being outspent, but are running grassroots, no corporate PAC money movements, those type of candidates are winning. And they've had that happen all across the country. And on August 4th, we get to prove to the rest of the world that Michigan is a part of that movement as well. So we don't have to wait for those greener days to come. We can start practicing those good behaviors right now. So thank you all for coming out. It means a lot. And I know you invited 4 candidates here, and only 2 would show up. I think that means a lot. Showing up matters. And in our campaign, every mile matters. Especially coming from Valley Creek, a town that I feel is overlooked. This entire district is overlooked. In fact, folks think that you can only win by staying in County Zoo and trying to maybe win and doing something over Valley Creek. But there's a whole lot of land in between. I'm a member of the 906 here in Colorado, and we got a lot of indigenous people that live in these areas. In Allegan County, we got Glen Lake, Conhome, we got 906, and here we got Allegan. 45,000 indigenous people that are rarely, if ever, engaged with. And we've got the support of all 3 federally recognized tribes in our district. And we're not just meeting with people in the cities, with communities of color. We're talking to farmers who understand that politicians on both sides aren't working for them. That understand that they're getting rolled over by the multinational corporations like Cisco, like Tyson, like Purdue. We're meeting with small business owners that understand that the red carpet is rolled out from the tech oligarchs to gigantic corporations, but the red tape is wrapped around our small little businesses. People are fed up with the status quo, and they understand that that is represented by corporate PAC money. That's why I'm rejecting it. That's why I'm fighting on my agenda, and that's how we get people power policy onto Capitol Hill. Now, I can't do this alone. I need your guys' help. We can prove to the rest of the world that we're about working class families here in Michigan on all this sort. So I'm going to need your guys' help. I need you to vote for me. Make your plan to cast your ballot right now. If that's absentee, if that's early vote, if you're going to go in person on E-Day, make that plan right now. Then I need you to share that plan and make sure 5 of your friends see that plan vote. I need all of you to go to my website at diop4ni.com to sign up to volunteer so that we can get more voters voting. I need you to follow us on social media, help us spread the word. And I also need you to chip in with a small donation so we can reach out to more voters across this district because every mile matters. Now I'm going to be in Allegan County, I'm going to be in Clinton, I'm going to be in Gary, I'm going to be all over this district for the next 25 days to ensure that every voter knows they have a real options on the floor. And I know I've been talking for a long time, so I want to just leave you with this. If you don't remember anything else, remember that Diop stands for democracy is our power. Thank you all.
So this is not what I expected to be doing this summer. I was going to be on the beach, hanging out in my yard, planting a garden. And yet, over the winter, as my frustration grew, as I talked to my friends, many of them disaffected Republicans, I had a turn of mood and decided that with Bill Heisinger standing unopposed in August, that's something had to give. And it just happened to be me. Because we need change here in this country. We need to look for a better way to go forward. And the way to do that is at the ballot box. So I want to provide people with a choice in the Republican primary, a distinct choice between the same old rear politician politics that Bill Heisinger represents and a return to principled Republican politics and public service, which I hope you got a taste of today. So I also want to say that it's at the ballot box that we as American citizens and voters hold our political leaders accountable. You've got the first chance to hold Bill accountable on August 4, and I hope you'll consider voting for me then. And if you want to know more about me, I've got a website too. It's Tanis4 with the number 4 congress.com. I'm also on social media. And I look forward to talking to many of you afterwards. So thank you for coming out and thank you very much for your consideration.
We are so happy that you all are here today, and we hope this evening has been informative and enlightening. Everyone here knows the importance of participating in our country and in getting out there and voting, as it's been reiterated several times. We'd like to thank our guests, Mr. Diop Harris and Mr. Bill Tanis, for coming out here and taking the time to explain their positions and with the people they wish to represent. We'd also like to extend our thanks to Be the Fighters, a national nonprofit organization supporting efforts in critical congressional districts across the country. Without their support, this forum would not have happened. So we give a great big thanks to them. And also, again, a huge thank you to Ryan Berza and the Griswold for assisting with us with hosting this forum.